Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we're talking about something absolutely heartwarming and culturally significant that demonstrates how Jungkook's impact extends far beyond just music and entertainment into becoming a genuine cultural representative for Korea on the world's biggest stages. We're diving into how Brazil and Brazilian fans have embraced Jungkook as Korea's representative at the 2026 World Cup, not as an actual football player of course, but as the cultural and entertainment ambassador who represents Korean excellence and appeal on the global stage in ways that make Koreans and fans worldwide incredibly proud. This is about cultural diplomacy, about soft power, about how artists can become symbols of their nations, and about why Brazil specifically choosing to celebrate and embrace Jungkook in this way represents something special and meaningful. So make sure you hit that subscribe button because we're about to explore why this matters, what it tells us about Jungkook's global appeal and cultural significance, how Brazil's embrace of him reflects larger patterns of cultural exchange and appreciation, and why being recognized as your country's representative in entertainment and cultural contexts is such an honor and source of pride. Let me start by clarifying exactly what we mean when we say Brazil has made Jungkook Korea's player at the 2026 World Cup, because obviously we're not talking about him literally joining the Korean national football team and playing in matches. What we're discussing is how Brazilian media, Brazilian fans, and Brazilian cultural commentary have positioned and celebrated Jungkook as the Korean representative who is winning hearts, creating impact, and representing Korea with excellence in the entertainment and cultural programming surrounding the World Cup. Just as the World Cup features football matches between national teams, it also features massive entertainment programming, halftime shows, cultural celebrations, and various performances and events that showcase different countries and their cultural contributions. In this entertainment and cultural dimension of the World Cup, Jungkook is being recognized by Brazil as Korea's standout representative, the person who is making Korea proud and capturing international attention through his performance and presence. This recognition from Brazil is particularly significant because Brazil has an incredibly rich football culture and history. They're one of the most successful national teams in World Cup history. Football is deeply embedded in Brazilian national identity, and Brazilians take the World Cup extremely seriously both in terms of the sport itself and in terms of the cultural celebration and national pride that surrounds it. So when Brazilian fans, media, and commentators choose to highlight and celebrate someone as a country's representative at the World Cup, even in the entertainment context, it carries weight and meaning because they understand what it means to represent your nation on this global stage, and they're conferring that status on someone they see as embodying excellence and bringing pride to their country. Now let's talk about how this recognition manifests specifically, because understanding what Brazilians are actually saying and doing helps explain the significance. Brazilian social media has been flooded with content celebrating Jungkook's presence and performance related to World Cup entertainment programming. Brazilian fans have created posts, videos, memes, and commentary positioning him as Korea's MVP, their star player, their representative who is winning the cultural and entertainment competition even if Korea's football team faces challenges on the pitch. Brazilian media outlets have covered his World Cup-related activities with enthusiasm and respect, treating him as a significant figure worthy of serious attention rather than dismissing him as just another celebrity. And importantly, the framing has been explicitly about him representing Korea, about him being the face of Korean excellence that Brazil and the world get to witness during this global event. The language used in Brazilian coverage and fan commentary is particularly telling because they're using football terminology and World Cup framing to describe Jungkook's impact. He's described as Korea's ace, their star player, their secret weapon, their representative who is scoring goals in the cultural and entertainment arena. This adoption of sports language to describe entertainment and cultural impact shows that Brazilians understand and respect that there are multiple dimensions to World Cup success and national representation, and they're acknowledging that Jungkook is winning in his dimension just as powerfully as any athlete wins in theirs. This respectful framing, treating his entertainment contributions as genuinely significant rather than trivializing them as mere celebrity sideshow to the real sporting events, demonstrates mature appreciation for how culture and entertainment are crucial parts of international events and national representation. Let me discuss why Brazil specifically embracing Jungkook in this way is significant beyond just the general fact of international recognition, because the Brazil-Korea connection and Brazilian appreciation for Jungkook tells us something interesting about cultural exchange and soft power. Brazil and Korea might not have the most obvious cultural connections, they're geographically distant, historically haven't had extensive interconnection, and represent quite different cultural traditions in many ways. But through K-pop and specifically through BTS and Jungkook, millions of Brazilians have developed deep appreciation for Korean culture, Korean music, Korean artistry, and Korean people. Brazilian Army is famously passionate and numerous. Brazilian K-pop fans more broadly are a significant demographic, and this cultural connection created through music and entertainment has fostered genuine affection and respect between Brazilians and Korea. When Brazilians celebrate Jungkook as Korea's representative at the World Cup, they're expressing this affection and respect that developed through cultural exchange. They're saying that Korea has something valuable to offer the world beyond just products or economic relationships, that Korean artists and Korean cultural content have enriched their lives and earned their genuine admiration. This is soft power in action, the ability to influence and create positive feelings through culture and art rather than through economic or military might. Korea's investment in promoting K-pop globally, the Korean entertainment industry's excellence in creating compelling content and artists, and specifically Jungkook's individual talents and appeal have created a situation where Brazilians genuinely love and respect Korea because they love and respect Korean artists like him. Now let's talk about what makes Jungkook specifically the right person to be embraced as Korea's cultural representative at this global event, because understanding his qualities helps explain why Brazilians and international audiences respond to him with such enthusiasm. First and most obviously, Jungkook has achieved extraordinary success and recognition that makes him a legitimate representative of Korean excellence. His solo achievements, his contributions to BTS's group success, his breaking of barriers and records, his industry recognition and commercial achievements all establish him as someone who has genuinely reached the pinnacle of global entertainment and therefore represents Korea operating at the highest levels. When Brazil positions him as Korea's representative, they're not picking some random celebrity, they're recognizing someone whose accomplishments justify that representative status. His performance abilities make him an ideal ambassador because World Cup entertainment programming demands artists who can deliver exceptional live performances that can hold the attention of massive global audiences in stadium settings. Jungkook's proven ability to perform at the highest level in the biggest venues, his stage presence and charisma, his vocal excellence, his dance skills, his professionalism under pressure, all of this makes him capable of representing Korea excellently in these high-stakes performance contexts. Brazilians recognize this capability and respect it because they understand what it takes to deliver under pressure on the world's biggest stages, and they see that Jungkook has those qualities in abundance. His personality and the way he carries himself also contribute to why he's embraced as a representative, because he combines confidence with humility, star quality with relatability, professionalism with genuine warmth. He doesn't come across as arrogant or fake, he seems like a real person who happens to be extraordinarily talented, and this authenticity makes him appealing across different cultures and demographics. Brazilians who might not normally be interested in K-pop find themselves charmed by him because he has universal appeal rooted in genuine personality rather than manufactured celebrity persona. This makes him an effective cultural ambassador because he creates positive feelings not just toward himself but toward Korea more broadly, as people associate the positive qualities they see in him with Korean culture and Korean people generally. Let me discuss the emotional dimension of why Koreans and fans feel proud about this Brazilian recognition, because understanding the emotional impact helps explain why this matters beyond just being another achievement or bit of positive press. For Koreans, seeing one of their artists being celebrated internationally as a national representative creates feelings of national pride and validation. Korea has worked hard to build global cultural influence through K-pop and Korean entertainment, and seeing that effort paying off with someone like Jungkook being genuinely embraced and celebrated in Brazil as Korea's representative at the world's biggest sporting event validates that Korea has something valuable to offer the world stage. It confirms that Korean artists can compete at the highest levels globally and earn genuine respect and admiration from international audiences. For fans, particularly ARMY, seeing Jungkook embraced in this way creates pride because they've supported him, believed in him, and advocated for recognition of his talents, and now they're seeing that recognition come not just from fan communities but from broader international audiences and cultural contexts. Brazilian fans celebrating him as Korea's World Cup representative validates that fan enthusiasm and support was justified because he genuinely deserves recognition at this level. It also creates satisfaction in seeing cultural exchange and mutual appreciation where Brazilian fans welcome and celebrate Korean artists while Korean fans appreciate Brazilian passion and warmth, creating positive international connections through shared love of music and performance. Now let's talk about the World Cup context specifically, because understanding why this particular event makes Brazilian recognition so meaningful helps appreciate the significance. The FIFA World Cup is arguably the single biggest sporting event in the world, attracting more global viewership than any other sporting competition. Billions of people worldwide watch World Cup matches, follow World Cup-related content, and engage with the cultural programming surrounding the event. Being associated with the World Cup, being part of World Cup entertainment, being discussed in World Cup contexts, all of this places you in front of a truly global audience that cuts across every demographic and geographic boundary. For an artist like Jungkook to be performing and being celebrated as part of World Cup programming means exposure to audiences who might never have encountered K-pop or Korean artists through their normal media consumption but who are now being introduced to him because of World Cup interest. The Brazilian embrace of him as Korea's cultural representative in this context amplifies that exposure because Brazilian media coverage, Brazilian fan content, and Brazilian cultural commentary about him gets seen not just in Brazil but globally as people follow Brazilian perspectives on the World Cup. This creates a multiplier effect where his World Cup involvement reaches initial audiences and then Brazilian enthusiasm about him reaches secondary audiences who learn about him through Brazilian content even if they didn't directly watch World Cup programming. The timing of the 2026 World Cup also matters because it's happening during a period when K-pop and Korean culture have achieved unprecedented global recognition and acceptance. 20 or 30 years ago, even if a Korean artist had somehow been involved in World Cup entertainment, international audiences might have received it as a novelty or curiosity rather than embracing it enthusiastically. But in 2026, after years of K-pop breaking barriers and achieving mainstream global success, international audiences including Brazilians are genuinely excited to see Korean artists on the world stage and treat them as legitimate global stars worthy of top billing at major events. Jungkook being embraced as Korea's representative at this particular World Cup reflects how much has changed in global cultural dynamics and how Korean artists are now seen as belonging at the center of major international events rather than being peripheral curiosities. Let me discuss the specific qualities that Brazilians highlight when they celebrate Jungkook as Korea's representative because what they choose to emphasize tells us what they value and appreciate. Brazilian commentary consistently mentions his talent, emphasizing that his success isn't just about looks or marketing but about genuine artistic ability. They appreciate his vocals, his dancing, his performance skills, recognizing that he deserves the success he's achieved because of actual talent. They mention his charisma and stage presence, noting how he commands attention and creates memorable moments when he performs. They talk about his work ethic and professionalism, respecting that he delivers consistently excellent performances and takes his craft seriously. Importantly, many Brazilian comments also mention how he represents Korea well, noting that he makes them interested in Korean culture more broadly, that he creates positive associations with Korea, that he serves as an effective ambassador introducing people to Korean artistry and excellence. This recognition that he's not just succeeding personally but is genuinely representing his country effectively and creating broader interest in Korean culture demonstrates that the soft power and cultural diplomacy aspects of his role are working exactly as intended. Brazilians are responding not just to him as an individual entertainer but to what he represents about Korea and Korean culture, which is precisely the kind of response that makes someone an effective cultural ambassador. Now I want to talk about how this Brazilian recognition fits into larger patterns of Jungkook's global appeal and international recognition because this isn't an isolated incident but part of a broader picture. Across Latin America, across Asia, across North America, Europe, and other regions, we see similar patterns where Jungkook is embraced not just as a successful entertainer but as someone who represents Korea with excellence and creates positive feelings toward Korean culture. Different countries and regions express this in different ways based on their cultural contexts and communication styles, but the underlying pattern is consistent. Jungkook has become a genuine global cultural ambassador for Korea who is recognized and celebrated internationally in ways that create pride among Koreans and contribute to Korea's soft power and cultural influence. The Brazil example is particularly vivid in public because Brazilian culture tends toward enthusiastic public expression and Brazilian fans are famously passionate in their support and celebrations, so the recognition manifests in very visible and explicit ways through social media, media coverage, and public commentary. But similar appreciation exists in other contexts even if expressed differently, and collectively all of this international embrace of Jungkook as a representative of Korean excellence contributes to Korea's position as a significant cultural force globally. Let me address the comparison some people make between Jungkook's role as Korea's entertainment representative at the World Cup and actual athletes representing Korea in World Cup football matches, because understanding how these different forms of representation relate to each other helps appreciate the full picture. Both athletes and entertainers represent their countries on the global stage, both create opportunities for national pride and positive international recognition, both face enormous pressure to perform well because they're carrying their country's reputation. The stakes and contexts are different, of course. Athletic competition has clear winners and losers determined by objective scoring, while entertainment impact is more subjective and multifaceted, but both matter for how countries are perceived internationally and how citizens feel about their nation's standing in the world. For Korea specifically, having both strong World Cup entertainment programming with artists like Jungkook and competitive football teams working to advance through tournament rounds creates comprehensive representation where Korea is visible and impressive across multiple dimensions. If Korea's football team struggles in matches but Jungkook delivers exceptional entertainment that earns global praise, that's still a win for Korea's international image and soft power, even if sports fans are disappointed by match results. And ideally when both succeed, when Korean athletes do well in competition and Korean artists excel in entertainment programming, it creates comprehensive positive recognition where Korea is celebrated across every dimension of the World Cup experience. Brazilian recognition of Jungkook as Korea's player in the entertainment dimension reflects understanding that there are multiple ways to win at the World Cup and multiple forms of representation that matter. By celebrating him explicitly as Korea's representative and framing him in sports language as their MVP and star player, Brazilians are treating entertainment contributions as genuinely significant rather than trivializing them as less important than athletic performance. This respect for different forms of excellence and recognition that artists represent their countries just as athletes do shows mature appreciation for how comprehensive national representation works. Now let's talk about the future implications of this kind of recognition, because when someone becomes established as a national cultural representative at the highest international levels, it creates expectations and opportunities going forward. For Jungkook, having successfully filled this role at the 2026 World Cup establishes precedent and reputation that will likely lead to more opportunities to represent Korea at major international events. Organizers of future global events will know that he can deliver at this level, that he creates positive buzz and reactions, that he effectively represents his country, and that he has the professional capabilities to handle high-pressure performance contexts successfully. For Korea more broadly, having artists like Jungkook who are recognized internationally as effective representatives and cultural ambassadors strengthens Korea's soft power and creates opportunities to leverage culture and entertainment for diplomatic and economic benefits. When people around the world have positive feelings toward Korea because they love Korean artists and Korean cultural content, that translates into tourism interest, consumer interest in Korean products, openness to Korean perspectives on international issues, and generally more favorable international environment for Korean interests. The cultural influence that artists like Jungkook create has real-world benefits beyond just entertainment, which is why governments invest in promoting their cultural industries and why having globally successful cultural ambassadors matters for national interest. Let me discuss the emotional impact on Korean audiences specifically because their pride in seeing Jungkook embraced as Korea's representative deserves attention. Many Koreans remember when Korean culture and Korean artists were relatively unknown internationally, when Korea was defined primarily by its economic development and manufacturing rather than by cultural contributions, when the idea that a Korean artist could be celebrated at the world's biggest events seemed unlikely. The transformation where Korean artists like Jungkook are now genuinely embraced internationally, where countries like Brazil celebrate them as legitimate global stars, where Korean culture is seen as cool and valuable rather than obscure or inferior, represents enormous progress that creates justified national pride. Seeing Brazilian media and Brazilian fans enthusiastically celebrating Jungkook as Korea's World Cup representative validates that Korea has successfully become a cultural force that commands international respect and appreciation. It confirms that investments in K-pop and Korean entertainment were worthwhile, that Korean artists can compete globally and win, and that Korea has contributions to make to global culture that people worldwide genuinely value. This validation matters emotionally for people who have supported Korean culture and Korean artists through periods when they received less recognition, and it creates satisfaction in seeing that support vindicated by international embrace. In conclusion, when we say that Brazil has made Jungkook Korea's player at the 2026 World Cup in the entertainment and cultural dimension, we're talking about recognition that carries multiple layers of significance. On the personal level, it validates Jungkook's talents, hard work, and achievements by showing that he's reached a level where he's embraced internationally as a representative of his nation at the world's biggest event. On the cultural level, it demonstrates successful soft power where Korean culture and Korean artists have created genuine affection and respect among international audiences through the power of art and entertainment. On the national level, it creates pride among Koreans who see one of their artists celebrated globally in ways that reflect positively on Korea as a whole. And on the human level, it creates warm feelings of connection and mutual appreciation between Koreans and Brazilians who might otherwise have little connection but who now share love and respect through cultural exchange. The reason this makes people proud isn't just because Jungkook is successful or famous, but because his success represents Korea succeeding at creating art and entertainment that genuinely enriches people's lives worldwide, because he represents Korea with excellence and grace, and because the international embrace of him as a cultural representative confirms that Korea has valuable contributions to make to global culture that people around the world genuinely appreciate and celebrate. Thank you so much for watching. Please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe for more content celebrating cultural exchange and international recognition, and let me know in the comments what you think about artists serving as cultural ambassadors for their countries.